and Hebrew Union College. So you have a Jewish seminary, a Muslim mosque, and a research university collaborating on the Center for Muslim-Jewish Engagement. One of our pilot programs was a text study program where we brought Muslim and Jewish clerics, Muslim and Jewish scholars together to read each other's texts and to talk about each other's texts and to explore each other's texts. And this was a year-long program that was met with great success. We also had a Muslim-Jewish film festival this year where every month we would show a different film and lead a discussion afterwards. And once again, we had really rich conversations. And what I've been most excited about is we've developed residential floors in one of our dorms where one floor is a Muslim-themed floor and running perpendicular to it is a Jewish-themed floor. Now, the reason we developed these floors is because both Muslim and Jewish students have dietary restrictions. Some Muslim students keep halal, some Jewish students keep kosher. So we wanted to give them suites where they had their own kitchens to cook those food, to prepare their food. But we also realized that this was an opportunity for them to engage with their own community and for them to engage with the other. So we've done a lot of cross sort of pollination events, interfaith events between these two floors, and really it's an exciting new residential model for engagement and reconciliation. And finally, something that happened last year that I also found inspiring, especially as an attorney, is we hosted a roundtable discussion with the Department of Homeland Security. And we invited the Secretary of Homeland Security at the time, Michael Chertoff, who came to our campus and met with our Sikh and Muslim students. Now, after 9/11, it's been very difficult growing up as a Sikh or Muslim student in the United States. Obviously, there have been certain registration laws, national security legislation that's been disparately impacting these communities. After 9/11, there was a lot of distrust between the Sikh and Muslim communities and the federal government. And over time, that distrust has turned into a desire for engagement. What I saw blew my mind. I saw our students talking to Michael Chertoff, explaining to him about how difficult it was for them growing up in these conditions, and what they could do to work together around mutual concerns of liberty and security. And Michael Chertoff was really moved by what they had to say, took their policy recommendations. And here we have a group of students who 5, 6 years ago would have been perhaps reluctant to have this kind of conversation. And now they're reaching out to Department of Homeland Security and said, use us, let us work together, use our communities, let us help you think about how to engage with us. And this is someone who is an author of the Patriot Act, listening to students tell him about what problems they had with the Patriot Act. So only at a modern research university, which is a neutral location, could this type of conversation be convened, and could this type of policy be enacted? So what I've seen is that because we are increasingly global, because we're a neutral location, because we have scholarly resources, and because we have community ties, we can have conversations around reconciliation, peacemaking, and engagement that you cannot have perhaps in any other forum. Now, I've painted a rosy picture of the modern research university this afternoon, and of course I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that universities are often locations of conflict as well. They're producers and theories of they're producers of theories and technologies that also promote and perpetuate violence. The research produced at universities like the University of Chicago led to the development of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. Biomedical research conducted at universities has a long and tainted history of unethical and discriminatory practices. And contemporary political conflicts and turmoil, most notably that of Israel-Palestine, play out on the campuses of our modern research universities across the country every day. However, I'm optimistic that the future of the modern research university is bright, and that engagement and reconciliation will continue to happen for the purposes of peacemaking and peacekeeping. And the reason why I'm so optimistic is because I've been inspired by my daily work with the generation just younger than me, the millennial generation, those students born, technically defined as those students born after 1982. How many students here, people here are millennials? Any? Yeah, there you go. It's crazy. For me, there's like, you know, I think a lot of people think of the Common Era, so, you know, when Jesus was born was BC, before the Common Era, and then AD. For me, that mark is the release of the album Thriller. It's hard to imagine that you guys were born after Thriller, but I guess you were. You know, these students, this millennial generation, they really hold a brighter future for all of us in their hands. Millennials are the most multicultural, multi-faith, multidisciplinary generation in human history. In their first presidential election, they changed the world by driving the campaign of Barack Obama, especially in the critical state caucuses and primaries. They're technologically savvy, they're socially engaged, they're optimistic about the future. Some even describe them as a post-racial generation, where traditional divisions of race and ethnicity don't shape their worldviews as they have done with generations before. One of my colleagues at the Edinburgh School is named Maury Winograd, and he wrote this great book called Millennial Makeover. It's all about the millennial generation and their role in the last election. And in it, he tells a story about a woman he knows. Her daughter is a millennial, she's a boomer. It's a white American family, and her daughter goes to college and meets a boy, and they start dating. And for 6 months, she's telling her mother about her boyfriend every day. Oh, he's so great, he's this, he's that, he's the other thing. Goes on and on and on and on. So she thinks she knows everything about her daughter's boyfriend. And 6 months after they start dating, they finally meet the boyfriend, and the mother is surprised that her boyfriend is Korean, American, and that never came up in a conversation. And she obviously wasn't disappointed, but she thought, with her generation, with my generation, that would have been the first thing that would come up in her conversation. But it never even occurred to her daughter that it was an important enough thing to mention, because it didn't really impact her relationship in any conceivable way. Now, this is a uniquely millennial phenomenon. This is a new type of thinking. So this millennial generation, I think, can create new opportunities for peacemaking just because they see the world in a fundamentally different way. One of the defining characteristics of millennials that I found is their desire to serve. I've noticed that millennials have a different approach to religion and spirituality than their parents. They are more interested in service than dogma, more interested in experience than belief. They are more comfortable learning from each other's faiths in a way that strengthens their own. They don't feel threatened by others. They're able to reconcile their community service, their community empowerment approaches with their spiritual and scholarly worlds. At USC, we've done a number of interfaith service events, and I'm always amazed by how many students turn up, and I'm always impressed by their dedication, and I'm always inspired by their collaboration. Millennials are also the first generation to list meaning as one of the top things they are looking for in their professions. I mean, generations before looked for stability, for money, for fame, for opportunity, but not for meaning. And millennials are driven by how they can find meaning in their life, both personally and professionally. Finding meaning in their life means connecting the personal and professional. And millennials are likely to try and live their dreams and embrace their passion in their lives and in their careers. Indeed, millennials are driving innovative ideas of social entrepreneurship, which is a new movement that incorporates ideas of social responsibility into business practices. Just 2 nights ago, I moderated a discussion at the new Art of Living Center near USC with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who's a famous Hindu guru, John Paul DeJoria, who is the founder of Paul Mitchell Hair System. He was an ultimate sort of rags to riches story. And Rob Dyrdek, who is a famous skateboarder and hosts his own MTV show. And the topic of the event was business ethics and spirituality. And there were 1,200 people in the audience. Most of them were millennials. And the event was filmed for MTV, which has a largely millennial demographic as its audience. So what I saw there was a real thirst to have this kind of conversation. They were inspired by Rob Dyrdek, who is a skateboarder building skate parks in low-income neighborhoods so urban youth could have a sanctuary away from the violence that plagues their daily life. They were inspired by Jean Paul DeJoria, who grew up homeless in East Los Angeles and now is a billionaire philanthropist doing extraordinary work in HIV/AIDS in South Africa. They were really inspired by people who thought about how money could be a means to an end, not an end to itself, by how business and business people could make the world a more peaceful and integrated place.